welcome to ICA, the Clay Studio. Today I'm just gonna go over the wheel and the different components that make up the wheel, and also show you how to throw a cylinder. It's a good refresher for after taking your first class, or before you take your first class, because then you kind of already know the steps. So let me just go over the wheel. This part, this metal round thing here, this is your wheel head. You'll notice that there are circles etched into the top. These are great because it's like a bullseye. I'll show you what I mean by that in a little bit. There are two holes too. Those are bat pens. You'll learn about bat pens later on if you end up making plates. This contraption here is called the splash pan. It collects all of like the slip and things. It makes it nice and clean, or cleaner, I should say. To the right here, you have a couple of switches. So there's the on and off switch. You know, the light turns on. Obviously, it's on. And then this switch is for the which direction your wheel will go. So if you look at it, it says reverse and then forward. If you are a right-handed person, you want the wheel to be going in counterclockwise. If you're a left-handed person, you want it to go clockwise. And you just need to play with it a little bit just to kind of figure out what's right for you. So I'm right-handed, so I want it to go forward. Okay, so when you position yourself, you want to sit as close as you can to the wheel, which I'm doing right now. So the foot pedal is just like the gas pedal in your car. You know, you have it all the way down. That's the fastest speed. And then you can go as slow as you need to go. And you can also actually move your foot away, which I actually recommend because then you're not doing these crazy speeds. And you can even kick it away so then you can just go one speed. So anyway, just a couple little safety things. You want to make sure that your hair is tied back if you have long hair, and also not have anything hanging down, like any of like the sweater strings, those kinds of things. Okay, so I'm going to just show you how to cut off a piece of clay. It's nice. This is fresh reclaimed clay, which we reclaim here in the studio. So you just want to take your wire tool, nice and taut, and cut off a piece. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like the size of maybe a baseball or a softball, somewhere in there. You don't want to go too big when you're first starting out, and you also don't want to go too small, because too small is a little difficult also to center. Put your clay away and close up the back. So we always start out with a nice round ball. I'm using the heel of my hand here to round out any of the corners to make it into a ball. You want it into a ball because when you throw it down onto the wheel, you don't want there to be any air caught underneath your ball or your clay. What happens if you get air caught under is it won't stick to the wheel, and you might end up pushing it right off the wheel, and then you're sad. That's good. So again, when I said when we have a bullseye here, that's going to be where you're aiming. You want to try to get it as close to center as you can. This is really the only throwing portion of the whole process here. So I'm going to try to get it as close to center as I can. Okay, so now what I like to I call it penguin patty cake. So you just have to, it's just patting the sides of the ball of clay. And notice that I'm not going down on the top. I want to keep my height. I'm not trying to, I don't want to have it be like this flat thing. You want to keep it into kind of like a melted Hershey's Kiss. And then just for good measure, I like to dip my finger in a little water, just seal it to the wheel. Now I know that sucker isn't going anywhere. Okay, so now centering, which is really the most difficult thing to learn, and what we'll be struggling with the most. So you want to get your hands wet. You don't have to pour water on it. You just want to you just want to make sure that you're not feeling any friction. If you're feeling friction, you need to just dip your hands in more water. Now I'm just adding a little bit of downward pressure again, because I really want to make sure this clay is stuck on this wheel. Okay, so also notice I have my elbows really tucked into my thighs here. I really want to have good leverage. You also have to make the choice that you're going to be moving the clay today, not the clay going to move you. So what I'm doing is I'm going to push in the direction of my forearm with my left arm, my non-dominant arm. I'm going to push forward, like in that direction, and then I'm also going to push down with the same pressure. This will push that clay in the center. If you notice, my hands are wobbling a lot. I know it's not centered because my hands are moving so much right now. So my goal is to have my hands nice and still. So I'm really going to lean into it. Okay. Now, it still has a wobble, so I'm going to keep pushing on it. I think that should be. So see how my hands aren't moving? It doesn't look like anything's happening under there. It's nice and quiet. That's your goal. It takes a while to get to this point, so don't get frustrated. But you get frustrated, that's okay too. It's allowed. Learning how to throw is very frustrating. Okay, so also notice my speed. I'm going full speed here. Use the wheel as your tool. Use that momentum, that centripetal force to really like push that sucker into center. As we move on, the wheel speed is also going to slow down. Okay, so now I have it's centered. I'm going to just kind of shape it a little bit, flatten it out just some. I'm using this part of my hand as a form. Like if you can kind of see, it's like this is the shape that I'm trying to form the clay into. This hand on the outside isn't really doing much. It also acts like a form because my top hand is actually pushing the clay into this hand, creating kind of this doorknob shape. I also like to try to have a little bit of an indent, and I use my pinky to create a little bit of an indent on the bottom here, like right above the wheel. And that's just good for when you're trying to pull up your walls. It gives you gives you some material to move up. Okay, so now I have the shape that I want. Clean my wheel off. You can always, if you end up building a lot of slip on your hands, you can just scrape it right off onto your bucket. Okay, so now we're gonna open it up. So the first thing we gotta do is we gotta drill a hole into the center so that we have a place for our fingers to pull on the clay to open it up. So there's a couple ways you can do this. I like to start it with the butterfly. I call it the butterfly. So with your fingers on the outside of your clay, you're gonna find that center portion and or the center of the clay, and you're just gonna kind of like open it up. You can go all the way down this way to open it up. The other way you can do this is by using your middle and index finger, and you're just like basically drilling a hole into the clay. Like this. I like to always compress. Whoop. Okay, so now it's almost open. Now I'm going to bring it out a little further because I'm making a cylinder, so I want to make like a 90-degree angle in the inside here. So what I like to do is I like to do fingers over fingers, and I'm starting at the middle and I'm grabbing that clay and I'm gonna push or pull it towards my belly button, opening it up that much more. You wanna open it up so you can at least have 4 fingers. You wanna have it a little wider when you're starting out, so then you give yourself a little room to work with. Okay, at this point, so I'm gonna start slowing down my wheel. Sometimes it takes a little messing with. So now I'm gonna compress the bottom of my pot, the inside of my pot. Now you really wanna get the inside shape done before you move on to bringing up your walls. And that's because it gets a little tough to get in there to try to fix that, to fix any little lumps or whatever that's happening in the inside of your pot. Best way to really refine the inside is to just use your sponge. And kind of just like a needle on a record machine, you just go back and forth, like between the center and like about 3 o'clock if you're a right-handed person. It'd be 9 o'clock if you're a left-handed person. And just really like refine the inside of your pot. And if it feels like it's not yet a 90, you can just use your finger to push that clay and create that 90-degree angle. Just got to be patient. Slow movements are key, mindful movements. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna start raising my walls. What I do is I like to use my sponge. I like using a sponge because it displaces the pressure, makes it a little easier so you don't, you end up ripping off your walls. It's very easy, it'll happen. So anyway, your inside hand, either it being your left or your right, depending on your left-handed or right-handed person. The inside hand is just there for moral support. It's your backboard. Most of the pressure is coming from the outside. So what I like to do is I like to sneak in at the bottom here, and I do my first pull by just pushing in and then pulling up. Now, my hands are working together. They're always touching. You want constant contact between your hands, so then they work as one. Again, I'm gonna push into the center of maybe about a millimeter, and then see how there's like this little kind of muffin top happening. Then I'm going to guide the clay up. My hands in the inside are following. They're just slightly above. You get slip, that's okay. Just wipe it off onto your bucket. Now, if you feel like it's out of control, slow down your wheel. If you feel like it's going too fast, just slow it down. All right, so I'm pushing in and then pulling the clay up. Like that. Now you want to try to pull your walls more to the center, more like a volcano shape. And that's just because the wheel, everything wants to become a bowl. So if we pull the walls more to the center, we'll keep that cylinder shape. And we can always push it out. It's a lot easier to push it out than it is to push it back in. Okay, again, I'm repeating the same thing. Moving those walls up. Ooh. Ooh. Getting a little wiggly. Wiggles happen. I'm going to collar it in because it seems like it's kind of going out a little too far, and that's just using, it's like a diamond shape, and I'm using more like this area to collar it in. And then compressing by, it's like an H. You use your index and your thumb. You create an H with your opposite hand with your index finger, and you're just letting the clay slide through your index finger and your thumb, and then you're just tapping down slightly with your other index finger, and then you can shape it into the shape that you want for your lip. This helps keep a nice even rim. You want to try to do it every pull if you can remember. Sometimes it's easy to forget that step, but so again, I'm now notice it's getting kind of tall. So my thumb now is just touching my thumb like this. I always constantly touching. So again, I'm pushing in. I'm not really pushing in too hard this time because I think now it feels like I have more clay up here. So I'm just gonna start up at this rim. Ooh, it's getting a little wonky. So I pulled a little too hard here. But that's okay. If you get a little ripple, you can just cut it off. Get a little wonky, just cut it off. It's actually a cute cup. I like it. Okay, so it feels like I have a little bit more clay I can use here. So again, I'm going to push in. And bring those walls up. Now, the goal is to have about, well, one, you want to have your walls the same thickness. But you want to try to go for maybe a 1/4 inch thickness for your walls. Okay, so now at this point, I want to cut off. There's this little skirt down here that's formed. So I'm going to cut that off. Using your potter's knife, just dip it in a little water. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow with the long side of your potter's knife. I'm going to follow the side here down into the skirt until I hear it scraping against the wheel. I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to create a little moat. It's like a little luge. I'm going to use the beveled end of my potter's knife. I'm going to slice into that skirt, and then I'm going to turn my wheel on and cut off that skirt. Now I'm able to really get in there and shape it. So I'm going to use my wooden, what is this? A wooden rib. And I'm just going to use this straight edge here to shape the outside. So now, before all of your pressure was coming from the outside, now the pressure is going to come from the inside. So basically what you're doing is you're going to push the clay out towards your tool. My hands are, again, they're touching. My thumbs are touching each other. And you're just pushing in the inside just to that form. And it gives you a nice straight cylinder. Like that. Some slip comes off, that's okay too. All right, so this, we're ready to come off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bevel side of my potter's knife, and I'm just going to, with the bevel side against my wheel head, I'm just going to go in and create a little lip or a little gap in there. Now I'm going to add a little water to my wheel. This is for hydroplaning, to take your cylinder off of the wheel. So you take your wire tool nice and tight and right up against your wheel head, and you're going to cut towards yourself. Like so. And then move your pot off like this. You might want to wipe your hands. Makes it a little easier to pick up. And then just pick it up and put it on a board. I don't have a board, but put it on a board. And then that's a cylinder.